People don't get murdered a dozen times in 2 hours. The absurdity of that phrase kept looping in Superintendent Maigrey's mind, like a half-remembered tune that refused to fade. It was ridiculous, yet it gnawed at him. Under his breath, he muttered a variation. Men don't get killed in their shirts. It was already stifling by 9 that August morning, the kind of heat that made tempers short and movements slow. Paris was half deserted, most of the city either on holiday or hiding in the shade. Even police headquarters felt emptied out, windows yawning open over the Seine. Maigrey had shed his jacket when the phone call came from Judge Simenon. "You should head over to Rue de Dame. A murder last night. The local superintendent is still there trying to make sense of it. The DPP won't arrive until 11. And just like that, Maigrey's quiet morning vanished. No one ever plans for these things. One moment you're looking forward to an easy day, and the next you're knee-deep in the unexpected. With the usual crime squad car unavailable, Maigrey and Lucas took the metro, its air thick with the sharp scent of disinfectant. Maigrey had to put out his pipe. By the time they reached the lower end of Rue de Dame near Rue de Bowl, the market was in full swing. Barrows piled with fruit, fish, and vegetables lined the pavement, swarmed by housewives bartering under the sun. The noise, the movement, the life, it all felt at odds with the grim task ahead. The crime scene, an ordinary 6-story building, the kind that housed families scraping by. A laundry and a coal shop occupied the ground floor. A uniformed officer stood at the entrance, ushering onlookers away. "The superintendent's waiting upstairs, sir. 3rd floor." Doors creaked open on every landing as they climbed, curious faces peeking out. Whispers trailed behind them. A crime? Here? In a place like this? The setting felt all wrong, too mundane, too quiet for something as dramatic as murder. A door stood ajar on the 3rd floor, leading into a small kitchen. A handful of children were making a ruckus, their mother's tired voice cutting through the chaos. "Gerard, leave your sister alone." A woman who had spent her life fighting small, endless battles. Maigrey knew the type. The local officer greeted him in the next room, a cramped living space, with a sewing machine in one corner, a radio in another. The window stood open, letting in the noise of the street. "This is Superintendent Maigrey," the officer said, introducing him. The woman, Maurice Tremlett's widow, sighed, as if preparing for yet another retelling. "So, I have to go through it all again?" She would, of course, and she knew it. Her husband's photo hung on the wall, staring back at them. A man with a stiff collar, a mustache, a neutral expression, a face so ordinary you could pass him 100 times and never recall it. He came home at 6:30, always on time. Her voice was flat, resigned. Took off his jacket, hung it up. He was careful with his things. We ate. I sent the younger ones outside. Francine, our eldest, came home at 8. I left her dinner on the table. She was speaking automatically, as if reading from a script she'd repeated all night. Her exhaustion ran deeper than grief. He sat by the window, reading, just like always. He never went out. Once a week we all went to the movies together, but otherwise never alone. He wasn't that kind. She paused, distracted by the muffled sounds of her children in the next room. Was someone fighting? Was something burning on the stove? What was I saying? Oh yes, Francine went out again. Came back around 10:30. The little ones were already in bed. I was making soup for the next day. Then we went to bed. Maigrey listened, pipe clamped between his teeth, his face unreadable. "The window was open," she continued. "Too hot to close it. Besides, it's just a hotel across the way. No one watches." A brief silence. "He was talking," she said, voice quieter now. "I don't even remember what about. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, rubbing his feet. His feet always hurt after work. Then there was a sound." Her fingers twitched. like a car backfiring. Not loud, but enough to make me wonder why he'd stopped talking. I was half asleep. I heard him say, "Oh, hell." Her lips pressed together. That surprised me. He never swore. She swallowed. I asked what was wrong, opened my eyes, and he... Her breath hitched. He just fell forward. A pause, a beat too long. "Maurice," she had called. He didn't answer. She had tried to lift him, blood on his shirt. That was when she screamed for Francine. And do you know what Francine said? Her voice turned bitter. "What have you done, Mama?" Francine had gone downstairs to call for help, waking the coal merchant to use his phone. Maigret exhaled slowly, turning toward the bed, half on the rug, half on the floor. A single clean shot to the heart, instant death. A nobody, murdered in his shirt. What was his name again? Maigret asked absently. Maurice Tremblay, the local officer supplied. 48 years old, worked as a cashier. Where? A firm in the Saint-Hugh district, class and cold, gold lace and braid. Maigret frowned. Something was off. He had spent 30 years investigating crime, and this didn't fit. There were always reasons to kill, a robbery, jealousy, politics, but this was a man who lived a life of routine, who followed the same schedule every day for years, who had no enemies, no debts, no lovers, and yet someone had planned this. Rented a room across the street, gotten hold of a rifle, likely an air gun judging by the wound. A professional's touch. But why? Nobody gets murdered in their shirt unless they aren't as much of a nobody as they seem. At Hotel Excelsior, the proprietor sifted through a stack of photographs. Ex-convicts, shady figures searching for any resemblance to the elusive killer Jules Datin. He shook his head. The man with the rifle, didn't see much of him. Didn't seem the type, he said. Lucas listened, taking mental notes. The lodger wasn't a thug, just a quiet, middle-aged man paying a week in advance with worn bills from an old wallet. He carried a small bag, sported a mustache, red in one light, gray in another, and left early each morning. Shabby, but not dirty. The chambermaid had little to add. She never met him, only cleaned his room late mornings. But Lucas, inspecting every inch of the space, found small clues. 3 stray hairs on the pillow, a fragment of cologne-scented soap, and an old comb with missing teeth. Not much, yet enough for the lab to conclude. He was between 46 and 48, red hair turning gray, balding, unhealthy liver. But Maigret's mind wasn't on the lodger. It was on the dead man, Maurice Tremblay. He had once worked as a cashier, but hadn't set foot in his old office for years. So where had he been going every morning? His daughter Francine held a secret. She had thought her father was commuting to work, but 3 months ago she had followed him, only to discover he was lying. He wasn't going to his office. He had quit long ago. Instead, he took her to a shop and bought her gold earrings, urging her to tell her mother they were fake. And then he kept meeting her in secret at the cinema, at the Jardin des Plantes. But what had he been doing all day? Where was his money coming from? An odd revelation came from a bird shop owner. Tremblay, under the name Monsieur Charles, was a devoted customer. He had bought over 200 canaries, yet none were found in his home. So where were they? The murder itself was a strange one. A weak bullet, fired from an air rifle, striking just the right spot to be fatal. Pure chance. The killer, an amateur, had even filed the bullet's tip, mistakenly thinking it would make it deadlier. And then, a simple remark stuck in Maigret's mind. Juliet, Tremblay's wife, had mentioned it offhand. He had a horror of noise. Tremblay, a man with 5 boisterous children and a wife who never stopped lamenting, had moved to one of the quietest parts of Paris. He had sought silence. But why? And what had he been hiding in that silence? As Maigret leaned back, puffing his pipe, he felt it. He was close. The pieces were there. He just had to see the whole picture. They found a gold lighter engraved with M and an expensive cigarette case in the house. You understand, Chief? Maigret nodded. He understood perfectly, especially when he saw an electric train set. Something utterly impractical. Don't you see? He must have wanted these things for years. Tremblay lived here like another man might go to the office. Mornings he fished in front of his house. Afternoons he read for hours in his wicker chair, alone, undisturbed. Some evenings he went to the cinema with his daughter. He had even bought her gold earrings. Do you think he came into money? Maybe, or maybe he stole it. Marais wandered through the quiet house. Check every bank in Paris. See if he had an account, he ordered. But Tremblay wasn't the type to leave a paper trail. I'm staying the night, Marais said. He flipped through books, examined fishing rods, even searched bird cages for hidden stashes. 7 years, 2,000 francs a month. It was a fortune. The money had to be somewhere. At 8 p.m. a taxi arrived. Lucas stepped out with a tall, dark-haired woman who looked annoyed. I didn't know what to do, Lucas admitted. So I brought her. She was Tremblay's mistress. I hope I'm not a suspect, she muttered. I never set foot in this filthy shack. She wiped the chair before sitting. Her name was Olga, 29, unemployed. I came forward on my own, she insisted. Tremblay had visited her twice a week for 5 years, meeting her outside a cinema. He wasn't like other men. He hated noise, loved nature, wanted her to sew and mend all day. He was obsessed with the countryside, always wanted to sit on park benches. She had tried to leave him, but he clung on, bringing gifts, writing letters. Did you follow him? Find out where he lived? He said he lived near Oran. I didn't care. I was going to get rid of him anyway. Did you have other men? Obviously, she scoffed. But nothing serious. And I wasn't proud of him. He looked like some poor parish priest. The investigation dragged on. Tremblay's 3 lives were known. His quiet retreat, his mistress, his fishing and reading. But there was a 4th. A cafe waiter recognized him. He came here every day, played billiards with a tall, thin man, red mustache, named Theodore. They were close. The hunt for Theodore began. Weeks passed. Then one night a gaunt figure with a red mustache slunk toward the house. The detectives caught him easily. He was starving. In Merritt's office, between bites of sandwiches, Theodore confessed. I was broke, borrowed from him, but he was tight-fisted. Then he told me he was done with me, sick of playing the fool. I followed him. That's when I saw the house and figured there must be money in there. You killed him? Marais said, chewing his pipe. Not for the money, Theodore muttered. I was angry. A year later, long after the case had faded, the missing fortune was found, bundles of notes wrapped in oilcloth, hidden deep in an old closet. 2 million francs. Marais did the math. Then he rushed to the Pavillon de Fleurs. The lottery records, he demanded. They checked. 7 years earlier, Tremblay had won 3 million francs. He had carried it away in cash and never told a soul. He hadn't wanted luxury, just peace. A quiet house, a few small pleasures. But even nobodies get murdered.